every night before I go to sleep, I ask my unconscious if it will enable me to download and integrate advanced modelling skills. Because back in 1997, I went on a workshop called Design Human Engineering and Advanced Modelling Skills. And I thought that would be a useful thing to be able to do more of, is to do more modelling. And modelling in NLP is often confused with strategy elicitation, and modelling is the ability to be able to open up your senses sufficiently and go into a deep enough level of rapport with someone else that you can actually model what they're thinking and what their processes are that they're using, so that you start to get those kind of intuitive flashes, do this next, or let's do that next, or that's the next thing to do. And it comes from being able to go into such a deep state of rapport that you can actually model what the other person is doing. Now, when Bandler was first modelling Fritz Perls, allegedly people used to call him Fritz, because he was so good at modelling Fritz Perls. He actually almost became Fritz Perls a little bit like method acting. And in method acting, what actors do is they study the subject that they want to model sufficiently until they can get a sense of what it's like to be that person. So Sylvester Stallone, when he was doing Rocky, modelled boxers and literally lived like a boxer for a period of time. So when you're using modelling, the first thing to be able to do is to be able to let go of all your conceptual models. Because a conceptual model is your model of the world, and it won't be the same as the other person's model of the world. And then you can start modelling them by going into the basic matching and mirroring positions, and then going into kind of a deep trance where you're totally open to receive the information from the person that you're modelling, till the point where you kind of get a sense it suddenly clicks, that you've got how the other person is experiencing the world. And once you have that experience of the world, you can fill out and build the model by watching videos of the person that you're going to model, listening to audio programs of the person that you're going to model, reading books about the person that you're going to model, gathering as much information as you possibly can, and then going into a state of what Bandler calls deep relaxation, or deep, where you just let go of all your models of everything and just literally copy the other person. And I did this when I was modelling Bandler doing hypnosis, watching a video. I just basically kind of almost like went into the TV screen, just became like in a state where I was able to notice everything that he was doing non-verbally, and notice the points at which he was sniffing, the point at which he was breathing, and all the other things without giving it a verbal reference point, just doing the activity. So it's like a deeper form of building rapport. You go into a deeper and deeper and deeper level of rapport with the person who you're modelling, until you get to the point where you kind of have a behavioural representation of what they're doing. And possibly, once you get into the deep level of rapport with them, your vocal qualities may change, your gestures may change. You just start to adopt the gestures of the person that you're actually modelling. And then once you have behaviourally got the way that they're doing something, then you can start to build a conceptual model. A really good way to do that is using deep trance identification. Deep trance identification is where you go into a deep state and build a representation in your mind of the person that you're going to model. So if you've watched loads of videos of them, you can kind of run a video in your mind of what they'd be like doing the things that they do. One of the people that I've learned was that we told us how to do this. It is a characteristic thing that he does, which is kind of, now this is get to the point, this is where it gets really important, that his voice starts to speed up. And so you can sort of go into some of the characteristic gestures that that person will do. And once you have those characteristic gestures, then you can start to get what they're conveying on a more of an experiential level rather than a theoretical level. Because it's the exact behaviour that you want to be able to replicate when you're doing the initial modelling. Now it's really useful before you go into that behavioural modelling that you set some really clear intention and outcomes on what specifically it is that you want to model. Because you may not want to model the whole of that person, you may simply want to model some of the skills that they have. When you're doing this modelling initially, you basically model the whole thing, the gestalt or the whole experience. Then after a while, you can then use strategies to streamline and cut out some of the things that aren't necessarily essential in order to do that behaviour. A good example of that is Steve Gilligan modelled Milton, and in order to model Milton, he actually followed Milton around in a wheelchair, because Milton was in a wheelchair, and Milton said to him, "Get out of that wheelchair now, because you might be modelling some things about me that you wouldn't want to build, you wouldn't want to model." So it's like getting the behavioural model and then taking away and making fine distinctions about what aspects of that person do you want to copy and which aspects do you not want to copy. So, for example, if you're modelling Gaz's footballing skills, which would be a great thing to model, you wouldn't necessarily want to model the other behaviours that go with the footballing skills. Does that make sense? So you want to make some distinctions between these aspects of behaviour are essential in order to produce that result. These aspects are just incidental and I don't really want to model them. So once you've got a gestalt of the whole thing, then you can start to make more fine sensory distinctions and go, okay, these bits I want to build within my model, these bits I want to exclude. And it's basically using the meta model to make distinctions as to what's inside the model and what's outside the model. So you can make clear choices, okay, these things I want to be inside my model, these things I want to be outside my model. And you keep making those sensory distinctions until you can produce the result and make sure that if there are any undesirable side effects, they're deleted from your model. This is a really, really useful thing to be able to do when you're working in trance with a client. As the more you can model their model, the easier it will be to find out what the limits are of their model and the things that are outside their model that would really be more useful if they were inside their model. So the other day I was working with a girl who seemed to me to be spending a lot of time in here, and I was having difficulties understanding her model of the world. So basically what I did is I went into a deep trance state and started to model her posture and the way that she was breathing, and just really, really altered my state. And from that place, it was able for me to be possible to find out the way that what was going on here, because it was an eating disorder thing that related to what was going on here. And I noticed that she was sat with her legs crossed around in a way that I can't even get my legs crossed like this. And when I started to refer to this and started to work with her on that, then her legs crossed to be the other way. And she started to communicate very freely, whereas up until that point she'd been not saying hardly anything. So by modelling her model, it was possible for me to lead her to some sort of model that was in the space in between, where it was possible for her to have the behaviours that she wanted to have. And I would have got that information by modelling what she was actually doing. I also did this with Ryan, who's a young man who was in a children's home somewhere around here. And I basically modelled his behaviour for about an hour and a quarter, till I got to the point where it was possible for me to have sufficient rapport with him that I could install an anchor that then was a resource for him, that he was able to have more of the states that he wanted to have, which was being nice and calm and relaxed in the times where he wants to be nice and calm and relaxed. So that is the skill that we're going to unpack and explore over the next